Donald Trump was just banned from Twitter. These are the times that I've been talking about. That's the very reason I created this channel, was because I know that the time is short and our opportunity to use our voices is waning. If you had watched CNN, you would believe that January 6th, 2021 was the worst day in all of American history, including Pearl Harbor, Kennedy and JFK's assassinations, and even September 11th. Hi, my name is Ali Shuaga, and this is 10 Points to Ponder, where we like to talk about all the things that get you canceled: race, politics, Jesus, and manhood. Today, I want to talk about moral equivalency and how the media draw equivalency between things that are unrelated because they have a specific narrative and want to excuse certain behavior while condemning other behavior. Here's 10 points to ponder. Point 1. The Capitol protests and the BLM riots of 2020. The purpose of the Capitol protests was because a large number of people believed that the election was stolen. The scope was limited to the actual object of their ire. They stormed the Capitol because they wanted Congress to not certify the Electoral College vote, which they believed was tainted. The damage was limited to that area. The duration of the Capitol protest was 1 day, and then everyone dispersed. Many people ended up being arrested, but it was over after then. Compare that now to BLM riots. The purpose of the BLM riots was to promote a narrative of anti-white hatred, a narrative of anti-police, a narrative that made these men, specifically George Floyd, who was high on fentanyl and resisting arrest, martyrs. Not to mention $10 billion in donations to Bigots Love Marxism. Let's talk about the duration of this. It wasn't 1 day, it was over a month. We had rioting all over our cities. Let's talk about the actual damage and the scope. We had police precincts burned. Do you remember that? We had people walking out of Nordstrom's and Macy's with bags of items that they wanted to sell and resell, and then justifying it as a means of reparations. And then we had media saying that this was the revolution, and revolutions are not always as peaceful and as nice as you like them to be. In this case, they seem to indicate that there's no moral equivalency between these two things because one is conservative and one is liberal. Therefore, conservative means also racist, which also means evil. Point 2, abortion and social justice. People say, well, if you really care about abortion, then you should also be in support of social justice. I would turn that question around. If you really cared about social justice, you would care about those who are 100% innocent. You would also care about the fact that since 1973, 44 million babies have been aborted. And out of those 44 million, guess what, social justice warrior? 19 million of them have been black. The only difference between the fetus and what we call a person is food and time. If we were truly interested in social justice, we would stop the disproportionate killing of black babies. Point 3, socialism and charity. They are not the same thing. When you take from each according to his ability and distribute to each according to what you say that they need, you create a lack of incentive for people to want to achieve, want to take that extra step, because any extra that they make is just going to be taken by the government in your forced charity program. When you take from some and give to others that have not earned it, all it does is create entitlement. A great example of this is charities that give out cars. When they used to just give out a free car, the car would often break down, not be well taken care of. When they started making the recipients pay a small amount for their car, what they found was that the people cared more. To give free stuff, people don't appreciate it. Let him who stole steal no longer, so that he can have something to give to him who doesn't have. Charity uplifts the soul and the spirit. Socialism diminishes it. Point 4. Censorship and Truth. If it were ancient times, fact checkers would be fact-checking you on the sun revolving around the earth and the earth sitting on the back of a turtle. Truth itself is not created by some fact checker, it's discovered, and the more information that we have, the better we have to figure out what actually conforms to reality. The same people who would have been beaten down by the fact checkers because what they said about hydroxychloroquine, sunlight, and vitamin D were actually ahead of the curve when it came to this disease. But because we suppressed it through censorship and fact checkers who weren't even medical experts, we allowed people to die needlessly. The truth is what conforms to reality. It is discovered and not created. Point 5. Safety and lockdowns. Safety involves a choice. You can choose to be safe, you can choose not to be safe. In fact, most economic activity that pays more is because you take unsafe risks. That's why entrepreneurs end up being millionaires, because they're willing to gamble upon themselves and sometimes end up successful. Lockdowns, on the other hand, eliminate choice and trade living for mere existence. We all want to be safe. No one wants to take unnecessary risks. What the lockdown people are doing is treating you like a mother hen that is suffocating you while keeping you in the nest. Point 6. Vaccination and immunity. Vaccination does not give you immunity. Once you get vaccinated, you can still get COVID. And if we believe that asymptomatic spread is real, then you can still pass on COVID. All the vaccine does is give you antibodies so that if you were to get COVID, ideally it wouldn't be as severe an illness that you would get. If everyone was vaccinated from COVID, we'd still get it and some people would still die. That's why the idea of someone who has a 99.9% chance of surviving COVID going the extra mile and getting a vaccine is absolutely ridiculous, especially when we know that of the people that get the disease, 30% have no symptoms at all. So there's your vaccine. Point 7. Court packing and following the process. Kamala Harris tried this line during the vice presidential debate. She stated that the courts had already been packed because no black people were nominated. And so here she's conflating a constitutional process of confirmation with changing a Supreme Court that has been 9 justices since 1869. Aside from the racism of her statement indicating that white people apparently are too evil to make good judgment, she purposely misunderstands court packing because everybody knows that that's their plan. Point 8, just a pet peeve. Zoom versus actual work. Zoom meetings and calls are not actual work. As a doctor, you can't be telling me to show you my elbow or my knee or get up close to the camera so that I can stick my tongue out and you can see if I'm actually sick. Zoom has fed into the laziest generation that I have ever seen. You got teachers in pajamas. You have people not answering calls. You got situations like Jeffrey Toobin. All Zoom teaches people is to do the bare minimum to get by. We need to end these lockdowns right now so we can finally get some work done. Point 9. News and propaganda. In the 1920s and 30s, the Frankfurt School, which was a group of people studying how you could bring about Marxism, determined that using mass communication and mass media was effective in changing the opinions and thoughts of the masses so that they would be more susceptible to Marxist revolution. Well, it seems that the work that they've done over the last 100 years has finally come to fruition, as we've had an election stolen right out from under us, and everyone just believes CNN that there's absolutely no evidence of voter fraud. COVID's gonna get you if you set 1 foot outside your front door. News died a long time ago and is now being propped up by commentators and propagandists like Weekend at Bernie's. Point 10. Mainstream morals and transcendent ethics. We as a society are now more concerned about fitting in and being within the mainstream and getting likes than actually following and standing upon ethical principles. As long as everyone else in the group is going in one direction, we're gonna follow them right off the cliff. This is how Mao and Hitler and Pol Pot and Stalin came into power. They made it cool to be a communist and cool to be a Nazi and cool to be a totalitarian. They gave rewards to those who turned in their neighbors. They painted one side as evil and therefore the enemy of the state, and they used the media to reinforce their power. They hated Christians because we believe that only God is worthy of our worship and no man or state takes that honor. The battle that we're engaged in our time is the battle for the mind. We have all sorts of things that are trying to exalt themselves against the knowledge of Christ and who we are as people. Only God determines what is right and good. Our culture is dependent upon comparison one to another rather than comparison with God. And right now the media is not only putting thoughts but putting emotions in people. That's why people were crying as the protesters descended on Washington, because the media told you to cry. How weak have we become as a society when we allow others to tell us how we should feel about what we're seeing? Those are my thoughts. What do you think? Please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. My name is Ali Schwaga, and this has been 10 Points to Ponder.